Hello, artists. Today we're going to talk about sculpture. Now, sculpture is a type of three-dimensional art. You could walk around it and look at it from all different angles. It can be made out of all kinds of things: clay, wood, stone, metal, or other found objects. There's basically four techniques involved in creating a sculpture. There's carving, there's modeling, assembling, and casting. We're going to look at these four techniques and some of the artists who use them to make their art. All right, let's start with carving. Now, carving a sculpture means shaping a solid material like wood or stone by cutting or chipping away pieces to create a new form or shape, sometimes even pumpkins. Artists use tools like chisels and hammers to bring their ideas to life. One of those artists was named Henry Moore, and he was very inspired by nature. He would start with a small model and then use tools like chisels to slowly remove parts of the material, making smooth, flowing shapes. Then he would make giant versions of those. He was inspired by nature and its relationship with humans. Another artist was his friend Barbara Hepworth. She worked a little differently. She used a method called direct carving. She didn't start off with a plan. She started off with a big piece of stone and started carving and waiting for those shapes to sort of emerge from the stone. She was also very inspired by nature and the human body as well. Another technique is modeling. Now, you've probably done this if you've used Play-Doh or clay. Modeling a sculpture means shaping a soft material like clay or wax by adding and pushing and smoothing it to create the form that you want. Artists use their hands and tools to shape their ideas. Stop-motion animators often use modeling sculptures, especially to create their characters. They sculpt the figures from clay or silicone or some other flexible material over wire armature so that they can be posed and moved frame by frame. You've seen all kinds of examples of these models in your favorite animated films. Another artist who uses modeling is Nastia Kalaka. She's a Ukrainian artist who uses clay to create these whimsical and adorable little animal figurines. The next technique we're going to talk about is assembling. Now, assembling is when you take different items and you put them together. Artists use materials like metal or wood, cardboard, paper, or found objects and connect them all with glue or tape or nails. Louise Nevelson is one of those artists. She would use wood that she gathered and other discarded objects. She'd put them all together in these little boxes, and she'd stack them together and paint them in a solid color. Picasso also used this technique. This sculpture is called The Bull. I think it's from about 1950, and it's just made out of wood and sticks. The last technique I'm going to talk about is casting. Now, it's a technique that lets you make multiples of something. Casting a sculpture means you're pouring a liquid material like metal or plaster into a mold. Once it's hardened, the mold is removed, leaving you with a solid shape. Edgar Degas' Little Dancer, age 14, was first made in 1880 using wax, which let Degas create lots of small details. After Degas died in 1917, the statue was copied in bronze using a special method called lost wax casting. This helped keep the textures and the lifelike look of the original. Today, there are 28 bronze versions of the Little Dancer in museums around the world. Another famous sculpture is Rodin's The Thinker. It started off as a small figure in a big piece of art that he created in 1880. Later, he decided to make it into its own large statue, using that same technique that was used for the Little Dancer. The first version of The Thinker was made in 1904, and now there are copies of that in museums all around the world. The statue shows a man deep in thought, full of energy and ideas. Now, casting chocolate bunnies and casting bronze are similar because both involve making a mold and pouring a material into it to create a shape. For chocolate bunnies, you melt the chocolate and pour it into a bunny-shaped mold. Once it cools and hardens, you have a very delicious bunny. In bronze casting, a mold is made of an object, like a sculpture, and then the molten bronze is poured into the mold to create a solid, lasting piece. Both methods allow the artist to make multiple copies of the same shape, although I will tell you that the bunnies are much more delicious. Now that you've heard about all these different types of techniques to make sculptures, I hope it inspires you to go out and create your own.